I've been here for 5 years and I've owned 5 businesses in 5 years. And I started giving back to the community. So I started asking myself, what should I do? I started browsing ideas. Then I'm like, podcast. I'll start a podcast. I won't be able to teach the audience because I'm not expert, not qualified to help anyone. But what I can do is ask bold questions to qualified people. And I'm going to ask, how did you make your first million? Because this is credibility. The purpose of this podcast was from the beginning is giving value and giving back. Because I felt like I owe this community.
Hey, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. Should I be calling you JC or Jean-Claude?
You call me whatever you want.
Okay.
JC works. JC works. Yeah.
All right.
You came all the way from Toronto to be on the podcast. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me here.
Amazing.
Appreciate it.
So for everyone, Faye is a lawyer. She owns her own practice. She has owned it since 2005.
Yes.
2005. We're going to learn from her today so many things about law and about how is it being a CEO as a lawyer? How is it like to own your own practice as a lawyer? Is it la la land, what everyone thinks? Is it is it not? So it's going to be interesting.
Thank you for having me here.
You ready to roll?
I'm ready.
Good. So you've never worked for a company before. You graduated and started your own practice. That's crazy. Tell me more about this.
It's been an interesting journey for sure. So I did work for Hydro One in Toronto when I was doing my articling.
Okay.
So I wasn't a lawyer yet. I was a student at law. And then after I finished working with them, I took my bar exams. I became a lawyer. And then I went off to California to do my master's of law. While I was in California, I found a lawyer there and volunteered my services. Told him I was a lawyer from Canada and I was there to study, to do my master's, and I'd like to work with him. And so while I was volunteering for that lawyer, I got the opportunity to see what it would be like to be a sole proprietor. Essentially, that's what he was. It was his own office. He worked by himself with his wife as his assistant and had his own cases, and he, managed his own time. And so with that very little bit of experience, when I came back to Canada, I thought about, the little spark of entrepreneurship was in my head. And my parents and I had moved from Etobicoke. I don't know if you know Toronto very well, but Etobicoke is a suburb of Toronto where I grew up. And when I was doing my articling, I was in downtown Toronto. But we moved from Etobicoke to Milton, which is going more west. And this was 2003 when we moved to Milton, and it was just farmland. It was really just a small town. It's still town of Milton. It's not even a city. And so I got that experience of doing the commute from Milton to Toronto when I was doing my articling. So when I returned from California, I didn't really want to do that commute again. Wanted something a little bit closer to home. So I looked at the surrounding cities, applied for a few jobs, and something told me, well, you saw what it was like for that lawyer who was working for himself. Why don't you try it? And so I did. A little bit of boldness, a little bit of craziness, but a little bit of stupidity. I didn't know anything about business, but I thought, well, let me try. In my mindset was that if it worked and I liked it, fine. If it didn't work, I can still apply to other firms and join a firm later. And lo and behold, it's 20 years later, still things on my own.
Good for you. Yeah, you need to be a little bit delusional to start a business or be a business owner. Most of the decisions that we make, it's high risk.
It is.
And if you want to be very smart, you're not going to do it because you will overthink everything. And then, all the results will and the math is not making any sense until you actually do it and fight and get it done. And that's what you've done. So good job.
Thank you.
Wow. I know lawyers, they usually practice for 5 to 10 years before they even think of having their own practice. I'm sure you've done so many mistakes along this journey.
Yeah.
What is a couple mistakes that you've done and you learned so much from your beginnings?
What I found out, and I can't even say I quickly found out because you don't know what you don't know.
That's true.
Right? So what I knew was I went to law school and I figured I will start to work in certain areas of law and I will start to learn those areas of law. But what I didn't know is about the business, right? Because law, just like any other business, there's the business of law, right? And I didn't take any business courses in law school. They don't teach you about what it's like to have your own practice.
Is it still the same thing now?
Now they are teaching those. I actually just saw a post on LinkedIn where another lawyer was commenting about how they're finally introducing into the law schools a course on running your own firm.
Mhm.
And it's interesting that when I was in law school that they didn't have that, because most people, when they think of law firms, they think of the big firms. But if you look at the statistics, most lawyers work on their own or they work in a small group of lawyers. So it's a chambers kind of setup where there'll be 2 or 3 lawyers in the same office, but they're still all independent. They're just sharing expenses, right?
Mhm.
And that's what most of the law firms are. They're mostly either sole proprietors or small firms or mid-sized firms. They're not the big firms that you think about. The big firms are the minority in actuality. And so the fact that there is no course that teaches you the business of law is definitely a detriment. And myself and other lawyers are now commenting that the law schools are finally, bringing that into the curriculum, which is amazing because you are right. I made a lot of mistakes. And I think that was the question you asked. What are the mistakes that I made? And so throughout my journey, when I realized I didn't go to business school, I looked into getting courses, right? The BDC, they have courses where, for entrepreneurs. And so I asked them to come teach me about business. And her first question to me, my coach, was, well, what are the KPIs for your business? And I said to her, first you have to tell me what a KPI is. That's how much I didn't know about
Still
business.
very common.
Still very common.
Common, not just for lawyers, for all kind of business owners.
Right.
I asked someone the other day, like, what are your margins?
Yeah.
And he was like, huh?
Right.
Restaurant owner. I'm like,
Yeah. You don't. So most entrepreneurs like myself and it goes across all industries, right? You know what you know, right? If you know how to bake cakes and you're going to open up a bakery, you know how to bake a cake. I went to law school. I knew the law. But you don't know about your margins. You don't know about your KPIs. And for those who are listening who don't know what a KPI is, like myself, those are your key performance indicators, right? What tells you as the business owner whether or not your business is thriving or not, right? We get so busy and so caught up in doing the work, right? I was busy with my files. I was busy thinking, like most entrepreneurs, that if I just focus on my client, most people want to become a lawyer because they want to help people, right? So that's what I was busy doing. And again, not knowing the business side of things, and you're balancing not knowing the business side of things, plus you're balancing being an entrepreneur and worried that you're not going to get business, right? So you take whatever comes your way. That's a huge mistake. If I could impart on anybody, especially a young lawyer who's going to start their own business, figure out what kind of law you want to do, because there's so many. Even if there's 2, just do those 2 and say no to everything else. And it's a very hard thing to do.
pick a niche.
That's right. Pick a niche and stick to it, even though the entrepreneur side of you is saying, I got to make money. I can't say no. Whatever comes in the door, I got to take it, right? Because I'm building my business. No, that's actually the wrong thing.
That's a myth.
That's a myth. Another mistake that I made is I thought it's better to be busy than not busy. And that's not true. Because when you're so busy doing the work, you don't give yourself that freedom to look at the bigger picture, to know what your KPIs are, to know what your margins are, to know what are my expenses? What do I need to make, absolutely need to make? And then how much can I, what do I need to charge when it comes to making a profit, right? If you keep yourself so busy, you don't have the time.
It's true.
You don't have the time to
You
figure
can't be a
it out.
CEO.
You can't.
CEO is the brain, operators are the muscles.
That's
You
right.
you can't most of the times do both.
You can't.
And I own a photography and videography business. I still, till now, don't know how to use a camera.
That's amazing.
And we have 5 stars reviews. We've been doing this for 4 years. We do like 30, 40 weddings a year.
Yes.
And the only key of success there is just because I've been the CEO. So I make sure my photographers and videographers are happy and make sure the clients is happy. We have systems for onboarding and for delivery. You know, if I'm filming, I don't have time for great delivery. I don't have time
Yeah.
to keep an eye on every angle, what's happening. Most of the times when I'm at an event with my team and they're filming, I see a potential good shot better than them because they're looking from this small hole. And that's exactly what you're saying. You're focusing on this file too much that you can't see the bigger picture. And you're not maybe calculating your billable hours. And as a lawyer, now you're making minimum wage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, not even that. Sometimes I'm losing money.
I
Not
believe
even
you.
making money, losing money.
I believe you.
And so one of the other things I did that was, and I don't know if this is necessarily a mistake, and I think it's twofold. So when I first started, again, the entrepreneur brain said, I need to get business, I need to get known, I want to serve my community. So I accepted legal aid certificates, which again, I don't think is a bad thing. I wanted to give back to the community. And for people who don't know, legal aid is an organization by the government that allows people to get a lawyer that's retained,
If they can't afford
by the government if they can afford it. And so the government will pay you less than what you could charge a client. And so I took those files. But again, there's a lot of red tape when you're dealing with the government. So I was focused on serving the client. I was focused on doing the work as a lawyer. I did not focus on making sure those bills got sent to the government, making sure that I got paid, making sure that if the government came back to me and said, you've used up your hours, that I stop working, right? First, I have to request more hours.
And I think people abuse the legal aid people
And
too because
they
they're
do.
not paying for it.
That's
So they
right.
keep on wanting to call you,
They're-
work for me.
That's right. They're the most needy client, right? So, and again, as a young lawyer, I didn't feel comfortable enough firing a client that was maybe difficult or demanding. I didn't feel comfortable enough pushing back, saying, no, you can't call me 10 times a day. Like, I only have so many hours on your file. How am I supposed to do the work if you want to be on the phone with me all day long, right? So you learn that's what experience gives you, right? You learn that these little things come and go, that if you create a situation where you are so busy, you don't have the time to be the CEO. You don't have the time to look at things from a bigger picture angle. You don't have time to focus on your KPIs or your bottom line. And you don't have time to create creativity. So, you talk about how you don't know how to use a camera, but you are the CEO of your company. And that means you're the visionary. You're the one who sees where your company, where you want it to go. And then you delegate to everyone that works with you so that you guys as a team can get there. But the CEO needs that space to think and to vision and to look at the market and to see how can they set themselves apart from everybody else in the industry. But if you're so busy working, you don't have that freedom. You don't have that space.
It's true. That's true. When did you hire your first lawyer?
I actually hired my first lawyer within the first 6 months.
No way.
It might have been
How was that?
So again, not knowing anything about business.
And HR and hiring and training and leadership.
Yeah. A gentleman came up to me and he said he wanted to work with me. And so I made him an offer and I said, well, I'll give you commission, right? I became known very quickly. Maybe it was because I was doing the duty council and I was active in more than one area. I joined the Chamber of Commerce and, I'm very personable. So I get along with a lot of people and I'm very helpful. So I created a name for myself pretty quickly. And so this young lawyer came to me, said he wanted to work with me. And I said, okay, I get a lot of phone calls. I've got the office. You can come and work in the office and I will pay you a percentage of the work you do. And we have to bill it. When I get paid, then I'll pay you your percentage. Well, again, it's not going to always work. If that gentleman if he also had the entrepreneur spirit in him, but he didn't want to take all the risk, it would have been a great opportunity for him, right? Because he didn't have to get the office. He didn't have to get the phone number. He didn't have to deal with the banks. He didn't have to deal with the law site. He literally just had to come and work and bill and work and bill, and it would have been fine. And if he was a good producer, he would have then been able to come back to me to renegotiate the commission, right? But we also have to realize as business owners that there is a reality, right? And not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur.
No.
Right? There are employees and there's entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And for the employees, and that's not a bad thing, right? That's not a bad thing because business wouldn't run without both, right?
No.
We need both.
We need both, exactly.
Right? So for the people with the employee mindset, they want stability and they want to know they're going to make a certain amount, right? So after that experience, I played with different scenarios where I would offer people instead of straight commission, because at the end of the day, they have to pay their bills. And the reality is even if they're working and they submit their bill, there's a delay by the time that money comes through, right? So what I did is I said, okay, I'll give you a base salary. I'll give you a base salary. And then if you work, the commission will come after you make a certain amount. But again, with mistakes, I was still having my own caseload. So I had my own files to work on, and I'm still managing the business, and I'm still always having my vision of how I'm going to grow my business. And so the problem there was that I didn't have time to watch them. So then they were getting their base salary, but it turns out by the time they leave, they weren't even, never mind getting a commission, they weren't even earning enough to support the base salary I was giving them.
I see. You didn't have time for leadership.
No.
And how is it now? Are you like doing more leadership or are you still doing lots of production or balanced?
It's a lot more balanced and I'm more focused on who I'm bringing in. So you want people with the right mindset.
Quality.
Right. Quality. You learn over time as an entrepreneur that you're better off not having anyone in the chair than having the wrong person in the chair. So, you wait for the right person.
And we were talking offline, your business model is very good for recruiting and getting amazing talents. So now you give them a base salary, plus you give them a generous cut off of every client they bring in. So they don't need to start their own practice anymore. You're taking all of the risks. They're sharing the profits with you. So it feels like they're partners. And at the same time, they have safety. I love that. Why did you do it?
Well, again, when I first started, I quickly found out that it's lonely being like an entrepreneur by yourself, like a sole practitioner as a lawyer. We all watch these law shows on TV, and it's never just the lawyer working by himself, right? There's always a team,
Yes.
and they work on the team and on the file together. There's camaraderie. You don't even need to be a lawyer to know that a lot of areas in law intersect, right? So I quickly found that in my own personal experience that it would be really nice if there was another lawyer here that I could talk about this file, right? Because two brains are better than one, right? Or if I want to go on my vacation, I have another lawyer that I can
Fill in,
fill in for me. And so not just me being in a small town wanting to serve my community with a lot of different areas of law, I also wanted to serve the people who worked with me. I wanted to create a law firm because in the town, it was sole proprietors. There wasn't a firm presence. I wanted to create a firm presence so that the lawyers can work together, collaborate, really enjoy the practice of law, which is a very demanding job. It's a very demanding job, and it's high stress. So, but it can be very rewarding as well, right? You're able to help people, which is great, but you have to have the resources as well. And as a sole proprietor, you don't always have the resources you need to help your clients properly, right? So when you bring a whole bunch of lawyers together, now you have more power to help the client. The clients can come to one location where, if they're getting divorced, that's fine. They have a family lawyer. The house is getting sold, that's fine. We also have a real estate lawyer that can handle that transaction. Now, this is a major area of your life that's changing, getting divorced. You may want to redo your will. Well, we have a wills and estate lawyer, right? So it's a one-stop shop.
Almost.
Almost. There's lots of areas of law, obviously. We would refer them to a tax lawyer or whatever, the specialized areas. But For the most part, they can get everything they need in our office because they have specialized lawyers in different areas. And going back to your question, whereas the lawyers, they want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't have to take all the risk. It's great because under my firm now, when they're getting commission by bringing work in, when they're specializing in one area, but they've got other lawyers in other areas that they can collaborate with, I'm also taking care of all the administration, right? They don't need that headache. I'm taking care of that for them. So they really can then just come and focus on doing the law stuff.
That's good. This is going to help you to attract some amazing lawyers because many lawyers are not paid enough. Many good lawyers are not well paid. And I know like if you're getting a 6 figures, they're making you work 15 hours a day.
At least.
Yeah. So I know they overwork so many lawyers and, if they're part of your team, they will have the safety plus all of the extra efforts that they're putting in, they will be rewarded for, which is very good. I like that. It's going to help to grow big time. Now you have 2 locations. Can you tell me more about these 2 locations? Where are they located?
Yeah.
Who do you serve? What's your niche?
Yeah. So again, I grew organically, maybe part of being in a small town. The opportunity came to me to take over a lawyer who was retiring. And again, small town, he had been there for 30, 40 years, very well known in the community, did the same areas of law that I had practiced. And of course, as a younger lawyer, I didn't know anything about taking over another lawyer's practice. And in my mind, I thought, how am I going to do that? What does that entail, right? And can I even do that? But things happen for a reason. And I ended up speaking with him. It was another lawyer that was sharing space with me at the time. We were sharing an office together. So the 2 of us did that together. And it turned out to be a very good experience. And because of that experience, I then went on to take over 4 other lawyers' practices on my own. So the second and the third were also in Milton. Right before COVID, I was in discussions with a lawyer in Burlington. So that was going to be my second location. And then that fell through. And my first instinct was, I was so disappointed because we had a deal. But then COVID happened. And I realized that was probably a blessing in disguise because it would have been very difficult to have that second office during COVID.
Everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason. And then lo and behold, I get through COVID, things stabilize. And then in 2022, I was actually in Napanee. I don't know if you know where Napanee.
I've heard of it. I haven't been.
Yeah. So it's a very small town on the way to Kingston. There was a lawyer who put an ad who was going to be retiring and selling his practice. So I thought to myself, where is Napanee? And I decided to go for a drive one Saturday to go visit this lawyer. And I got there bright and early. I'm sitting in my car, just scrolling through some pictures while I'm waiting for him to show up. And lo and behold, I found a picture of an ad of a lawyer who was selling his practice in Grimsby.
Where's that?
Grimsby is on the way to Niagara Falls.
Okay. So it's on the other side from Napanee.
Other side,
okay.
Right? So here I am sitting in Napanee. Didn't know where Napanee was till I drove there, waiting for this lawyer. And I see this picture, which I had taken, I think it was August. But I had taken that picture in May, months ago. I just saw it. I took a picture of it. And I thought to myself, well, where's Grimsby? So I looked it up on the map, and lo and behold, that was like 40 minutes away from me rather than this 3-hour drive to Napanee. I'm like, well, Grimsby's much closer. I wonder if this practice is still for sale. So I call the number. It's a weekend. I call it. And obviously they weren't open, but the number worked. It was still the same gentleman's name. I left a message saying, I wonder if you're still selling your practice. Please give me a call. And I hung up. Continued on with my meeting with the lawyer from Napanee. So we discussed, his practice and whether or not anybody was going to stay on, and had to sign non-disclosure agreement, and then he was going to get me some financials. I said, okay, great. And I left. In the meantime, the lawyer from Grimsby calls me. So I make plans to go see that lawyer. And the moment I got to Grimsby, I fell in love with Grimsby.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What makes it interesting?
It is a small town. It reminded me of Milton.
Hmm.
And the office was right on the main street. So I'm right in the downtown core of the
Nice.
city. Similar to the lawyers that I had purchased in Milton, that gentleman had been there for 40 years. And that location was a law firm for probably 80 years. And that's what was important to him. He said, other people have approached me, but I want it to stay a law firm because it's an iconic, location for this town. And there's always been a lawyer here, and I want a lawyer to stay here. And so I started to do my research on Grimsby. And turns out, I think there were 10 or 11 lawyers in Grimsby, 9 of which were men, not very many women. And I think more than 8 of them were over 70.
Wow. That's in 2020.
2022.
2022. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, probably 2021, because I took over his practice in 2022, but we met in 2021.
That's
It took us a little while to, to come to terms and
Offboarding takes some time.
yeah. So I thought to myself, now I have the opportunity to take all of the lessons that I learned in my practice in Milton and apply it to Grimsby. I'm not going to make the same mistakes that I made in Milton, and I'm going to open up this second location. And thankfully, his assistant was going to stay on. She wasn't looking to retire with him. And, he was at the point where he had his career. He was ready to go. He was very reasonable because throughout my journey, I've spoken to a number of different lawyers, and some of them are unreasonable with respect to...
So how does it work when you want to buy some lawyer's practice? Do they charge you per client they had? What if the client is not coming back?
Yeah.
How do you put a proper price? I know for business, it's multiple by 3 or 4 times because this is how long it takes you to start making money off of your business.
Right. So again, as I was just about to say, I've met a whole bunch of people throughout my business career now that were looking to sell their business, and it's both. You will find the lawyer that tries to apply a multiple and tries to make a substantial amount. And those are the ones that are usually have a bigger firm, they're using a broker. And then you'll find the sole proprietor that's just selling it on his own, and he's a lot more reasonable. And because I'm not one big firm acquiring a smaller firm, I'm a sole proprietor, sort of, basically, even though I have other lawyers working at the firm, acquiring a small firm, acquiring another firm. Those are the ones that I wanted to deal with because they are reasonable in their expectation. They're not trying to apply a multiple. And at the end of the day, what you're buying when you buy a law firm is a list of clients. That's it. You get the phone number because people are creatures of habit, so they're going to keep calling the same phone number. But that's what you're buying, a list of clients, and on the hope that because they had a good relationship with this lawyer and this retiring lawyer trusts you and is recommending to his clients that they're going to be in good hands with you as the successor lawyer.
The percentage of the clients that keeps using you after you buy a practice, is it like 20%?
No, I would say it's probably 60.
Wow.
60. Yeah.
Interesting.
But there is attrition, and it depends on the list of clients, right? So the second lawyer that I took over, one of his clients was the town. So that was a major client, which equaled major billings. But that client didn't stay on. That client decided they wanted a firm. They didn't want just a sole proprietor because they wanted somebody that could be more available. So that made a difference. But other firms where, depending on the client list of the lawyer, maybe 1 or 2 will stop calling you because they were really connected to that particular lawyer, right? It wasn't just that location or, because they were in the same town. They were connected to that lawyer. Even though they moved, they still went to that lawyer because that was the relationship. So those people you're going to lose, right? Because that was just loyalty to the lawyer that was retiring. But for the most part, I find that because people are creatures of habit, if you're walking into the same office, if you're calling the same phone number, and they like you. So, in the beginning, they might come to you just because, but then it's your opportunity to serve. And it's your opportunity to show what you can do. And if they like you, then they keep you and they'll come back.
That's
right?
right.
So it's the first transaction you get just on the basis of the goodwill from the other lawyer. After that, it's up. And thankfully, I've grown my practice where the clients like me and they not just continue to come back, but they refer people to me, or they will use me for a service that they didn't initially come to me for
Love that.
because we have so many areas of law.